Hello, boys and girls of grade 5, and welcome to English Language. I am your teacher, Miss Melissa, and today we will be looking at an interesting topic, punctuation. I'm sure you are acquainted with this topic. However, let's refresh our memory. What is punctuation? Punctuation refers to tools, symbols, or signs that are used to help to show the structure and construction of a sentence. It helps the reader to know how the sentence is read as they attempt to understand and navigate the sentence. Punctuation assists in expressing the meaning of sentences clearly, making the flow of text smooth. Let's imagine a world where punctuation doesn't exist. In that world, there would be much chaos in both reading and writing, since we won't know where a sentence ends, whether a phrase is a question, or what emotions are being expressed in sentences. Thus, punctuation is very important. Let's take a look at these sentences to show the importance of punctuation. The first sentence says, "Let's eat grandma." How does that sound? Are we going to have grandma for dinner? Let's look at the difference it would make if we place a comma after the word eat. It will read, "Let's eat grandma." In that case, we're actually inviting grandma to eat with us and not necessarily eat grandma. Let's look at another one. "I love baking my family and my friends." That sounds as if we're baking our family and our friends. So let's make use of a comma after baking. Listen to the new sentence. "I love baking my family and my friends." There we have a list of the things that I love. Lastly, let's look at how another comma and colon can make a vast difference. A woman without her family is nothing. So in that sentence, we're saying that if a woman doesn't have her family, she wouldn't amount to anything. But if we place a colon after woman, the sentence attaches a whole new meaning. Let's read it. A woman without her, comma, family is nothing. This sentence means that if a woman is not present, then the family amounts to nothing. From the examples, we are seeing that punctuation is very important. In our first two sentences, one comma changed the entire meaning of the sentence, while in our last sentence, a colon and a comma made a whole new difference. So let's go on to some punctuation marks. To assist with punctuation, there are many symbols called punctuation marks, inclusive of full stop, comma, question mark, exclamation mark, quotation marks, apostrophe, hyphen, dash, capital letters, colon, semicolon, parentheses, brackets, ellipsis, and the slash. So today, we will be zooming in on 5 of those punctuation marks. Listen to this poem called Punctuation Folks. The full stop is a busy man, a small round traffic cop. He blocks the helter-skelter words and brings them to a stop. The question marks, a tiny girl. She's small but very wise. She asks too many questions for a person of her size. Of all the punctuation folk, I like the comma best, for when I'm getting out of breath, it lets me take a rest. Quotation marks are curious. When friendly talk begins, you'll always find those little marks are busy listening in. The exclamation marks an elf who is easily excited when children laugh or cry or scream. It's then he's most delighted. From this poem, Punctuation Folks, we can have an insight on the uses of the full stop, question mark, exclamation mark, quotation marks, and comma. So let's get into it. Full stop. Full stops are used at the end of sentences. Those are the declarative and imperative sentences. For example, the principal rang the bell. Full stop. Or, please don't be late. Full stop. Also, full stops are used after abbreviations, initials, and shortened forms of words. For example, AVE full stop is the shortened form of avenue. Or, if we have P full stop M full stop, that is the abbreviation for post-meridian or afternoon. FRI is the shortened form of Friday. And LFS Burnham is the initials for Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham. So let's look at this exercise. Here, we're seeing no punctuation marks. We're not even seeing capital letters. So it's our task to put in full stops and insert the capital letters where necessary. Let's read the paragraph as it is, and then we will insert our punctuation marks thereafter. There are many kinds of hobbies. Many take the form of games and sports. Other hobbies take the form of collecting curiosities and antiques. Some hobbies require artistic gifts and talents. Everyone should have a hobby, for it adds greatly to the pleasure of life. So let's make an attempt to put full stops at the end of these sentences. Where do you think the first full stop will be inserted? That's correct, right after the word hobbies. So our first sentence reads, there are many kinds of hobbies. If we're going to begin the next sentence, we must capitalize many. But where will we put the next full stop? may take the form of games and sports. Right there. So that indicates the end of another sentence. We must capitalize other. Let's look to insert another full stop. Other hobbies take the form of collecting curiosities and antiques. You are correct if you inserted the full stop after the word antiques. Let's go. 2 more. Some hobbies require artistic gifts and talents. Yes, full stop right after the word talents. And finally, everyone should have a hobby, for it adds greatly to the pleasure of life. Full stop. So in total, we inserted 5 full stops. So our sentences now read, there are many kinds of hobbies, full stop. Capitalize many. Take the form of games and sports, full stop. Other hobbies take the form of collecting curiosities and antiques, full stop. Some hobbies require artistic gifts and talents, full stop. Everyone should have a hobby, for it adds greatly to the pleasure of life. So I'm sure you've gotten the hang of how we use our full stops. Let's move on to question mark. Simply, a question mark is placed after a direct question. For example, why are you always late? Question mark. How many stamps do you have? Question mark. This is what you've called me for? Question mark. So let's go on to another. The exclamation mark. An exclamation mark is used after interjections and at the end of a sentence that expresses strong emotions such as surprise or admiration, anger, or any other strong emotion. For example, if we are to say, wow, in order for our listener to understand our emotions, we must say, wow, or, oh dear. If we're crying for help, no one will take us seriously if we say, help, help. But if we say, help, help, it makes a difference. Note, never overuse exclamation marks. Too many exclamation marks can make your writing ineffective. For example, if you want to say stop, 1 exclamation mark is sufficient. There is no need for 3 or more. So let's make an attempt at putting end punctuation marks in each of the following sentences. Remember, our end punctuation marks are full stop, question mark, and the exclamation mark. So let's look at number 1. It reads, no way. Which end punctuation mark do you think is suitable to be at the end of that sentence? are correct. An exclamation mark. So that sentence would read, no way. Let's go on. Is that too much to ask? I'm sure you've gotten the answer already. Question mark. Is that too much to ask? What about number 3? What was she wearing? Another question, so we insert a question mark. Number 4, the 2 boys were caught stealing. What do we put at the end of that sentence? You are correct. A full stop. Let's move ahead. Number 5. The house is on fire. You're right on track. Exclamation mark. Because this sentence expresses strong emotions. More importantly, the need for urgency. So this sentence will read, the house is on fire. Lastly, I think I owe you an apology. Yes, full stop is the best end punctuation mark for that sentence. So let's move on to commas. The comma marks a short pause. It can be used in the following ways. Firstly, commas are used to separate words in a sentence, series, or list. For example, Carla, comma, Anne, comma, Mary, and Sue went shopping yesterday. The commas are used to separate Carla, Anne, and Mary. We do not place a comma after Mary because the conjunction and is there to separate the words Mary and Sue. Let's go on. We bought bread, butter, cheese, and sandwich spread. We place commas between bread and butter, butter and cheese in order to separate the words in that list. Note that when and comes before the last word or item in the list, the comma is usually omitted. Secondly, commas are used to separate actions in a sentence. For example, if we say, Caleb put on his helmet, that's one action, comma, jumped on his bicycle, and rode to the park. So a comma is used to separate the action of putting on the helmet and jumping on his bicycle. Another example is Sammy ran down the path, jumped over the wall, retrieved the ball, and threw it back to us. We have a series of actions in that list: running down the path, jumping over the wall, retrieving the ball, and throwing the ball back. So commas are used to separate the running, the jumping, and the retrieving. Also, commas are used after introductory words such as however, well, yes, or no, and before please in sentences. So, if we say, no, it has not stopped, we must put a comma after the word no. Secondly, yes, comma, it is 3:15. And if we are to use the word please at the end of the sentence, it must be read something like this. Can you tell me what time it is, comma, please? However, you may not be disappointed. After the word however, which is an introductory word, we must place a comma. Fourthly, commas can be used to write dates, addresses, and numbers. For dates, a comma is used to separate the year from the rest of the sentence. For example, on December 20th, 1890, orders were sent to arrest the president. If we are using comma in addresses, they are used to separate the various parts of that address. For example, please send a letter to Greg at 708 Spring Street, Kitty, Georgetown, Guyana. And for numbers more than 4 digits long, commas can be used to separate the numbers into groups of threes. For example, if we have 3,500, a comma is placed between the 3 and the 5. Also, if we have 100,000, a comma is placed after the second zero. Additionally, commas are used to set off or separate direct speech or quotations. For example, Mary said, I dislike concerts because the music is too loud. The direct quotation in that sentence is, I dislike concerts because the music is too loud. The indirect speech is, Mary said. A comma is used to separate the two. So our sentence should read, Mary said, comma, open quotes, I dislike concerts because the music is too loud. Also, commas are used to separate appositives from the rest of the sentence. An appositive is a noun or noun phrase that renames a noun or pronoun that follows it. Let me give you some examples. The janitor, Mr. Green, is sick today. The appositive in that sentence is Mr. Green. So, our sentence should read, the janitor, comma, Mr. Green, comma, is sick today. Also, Mr. Williams, the Minister of Works, addressed our problems. Can you tell me which phrase is the appositive? Yes, the Minister of Works. So we need commas to separate. Our sentence should therefore read, Mr. Williams, comma, the Minister of Works, comma, addressed our problems. And finally, the New York Jets, the underdogs, surprised everyone by winning the championship. To separate those words in the sentence, we need commas. The New York Jets, comma, the underdogs, comma, surprised everyone by winning the championship. And here is another use of commas. Commas are used to separate introductory and independent clauses from the rest of the sentence. For example, as I hurried home from school that afternoon, the wind began to blow violently. What are the clauses in that sentence? Yes, there are two. As I hurried home from school that afternoon, and then the wind began to blow violently. Just to delve a little deeper, the first section of that sentence is a dependent clause because it cannot stand alone. Listen, as I hurried home from school that afternoon does not make sense by itself. The second part of the sentence, however, is an independent clause. The wind began to blow violently. It can stand on its own. If we say the wind began to blow violently, it will make sense on its own. Therefore, we must place a comma to separate the dependent clause from the independent clause. So our sentence will read, as I hurried home from school that afternoon, comma, the wind began to blow violently. Note, you do not place commas after main clause. Commas are only placed after dependent clauses if they come first in the sentence. What I'm saying then, if your independent clause comes first, then there will be no need for a comma. Let's look at an example. The cat scratched at the door while I was eating. There will be no need for a comma here because the first part of the sentence contains the independent clause. However, if the sentence is read alternately, then a comma would be needed. While I was eating, comma, the cat scratched at the door. Let's see if we can apply those uses of the comma. In this exercise, we will insert commas where necessary in the following sentences. Our first sentence reads, having received my explanation, the principal was satisfied. Here, we're seeing two clauses, a dependent coming first and an independent coming thereafter. So, a comma is needed. Where will you place that comma? Yes, definitely after the word explanation, since it signals the end of the dependent clause. Next, humans have a variety of teeth, including molars, premolars, canine, and incisors. Where would you insert commas in that sentence? Yes, right after molars and premolars, since it would be used there to separate the words in that list. Let's look at another. John said, "I'll see you tomorrow." There is direct and indirect speech. Where would you put your comma, boys and girls? Yes, right after the word said. John said, comma, introduction of the quote, "I'll see you tomorrow." And finally, where would you put your comma in this sentence? My mother, Angela, is a wonderful cook. Yes, I'm sure you saw the appositive Angela. So we need separators. So we would have placed a comma after mother and after Angela. Very good job, boys and girls. Let's move on to our last punctuation mark for today. Quotation marks or inverted commas. So, quotation marks are used to enclose the exact words spoken by a person. They are punctuation marks that are used to begin and end a quotation. Inverted commas, as they are sometimes called, are used only in direct speech, and only the words actually spoken are put in the quotation marks. A comma, as we have learned, must be placed between the ordinary words, that is, the indirect speech, and the direct speech. And the punctuation marks must also be enclosed in the quotation marks. The first word of the quote must be capitalized. So let's look at some examples. John said, "I took the bus this morning." The direct speech in that sentence is, "I took the bus this morning." We must capitalize I. There must be a full stop after morning and a comma after said. So our sentence should read, John said, comma, open quotation marks, beginning our quote, "I took the bus this morning," full stop, end or close quotation marks. Let's try another. My friend asked, "Will you come with me?" Where do you think we will put those inverted commas? Yes, around the direct words of my friend, which is, "Will you come with me?" So our sentence should be punctuated like this. My friend asked, comma, open quotes, capital W, "Will you come with me?" Question mark, close quotation mark. I hope you're getting the hang of it. Let's look at this. When the speech is interrupted by words that are not actually spoken, the quotation marks are opened again. There is no need to capitalize the second part of the quote. So let's look at this example. "I have completed my work," said Kathy, and I could come out to play now. In that sentence, there are two sets of quotation which were said by the speaker, Kathy. So, we must enclose the first part in quotation marks and also the second part in quotation marks. So, we must have open quote. I have completed my work, comma, close quotation mark, then there's a break. Said Kathy. That is indirect speech. And then Kathy continues speaking. Open quote. And I can come out to play now. Full stop. End quote. Let's try another. That, I replied, will never happen again. There are two sets of quotations. That will never happen. So, we enclose that in quotation marks and also will never happen in quotation marks also. So let's make an attempt to put quotation marks where needed in these sentences. The first one, my friend said, let's ride to the park. First, boys and girls, you must identify the direct speech within the sentence. Yes, my friend said, and the quote is, let's ride to the park. So those are the words that we must enclose in quotation marks. The sentence should read, my friend said, comma, open quotes, let's ride to the park, full stop, close quotation mark. Let's look at another. I just bought tickets for the concert, announced Chris. What is the direct speech? Yes, I just bought tickets for the concert. So that is the part of the sentence that should be enclosed in quotation marks. Remember, you must place a comma after the word concert. And lastly, shh, whispered my teammate, I can't hear the teacher. It seems here in this sentence that there are two groups of direct speech. So we must enclose each of them in separate quotation marks. So the sentence should read, open quotes, shh, exclamation mark, close quotes, whispered my teammate, comma, and open quotes, I can't hear the teacher, full stop, and quotation marks. So let's take a look at what we have done in today's lesson. We learned that punctuation refers to tools, symbols, or signs that are used to help to show the structure and construction of a sentence. They assist in expressing the meaning of sentences clearly, making the flow of text smooth. Examples of punctuation marks include full stops, question marks, exclamation marks, commas, colons, hyphens, among others. We also learned that a full stop should always be used to end the sentence. The full stop indicates that a point has been made and that you are about to move on to further explanations or a related point. Full stops are also used at the end of abbreviations. Then, we reminded ourselves that question marks are used at the end of direct questions or interrogative sentences. Further, the exclamation mark, also sometimes referred to as the exclamation point, is a punctuation mark usually used after an interjection or exclamation to indicate strong feelings or high volume shouting to show emphasis. Additionally, the primary function of quotation marks is to set off and represent exact words, either spoken or written, that has come from somebody else. Commas have a variety of functions, but mainly they separate words, clauses, and phrases in a sentence. So boys and girls, I'm sure you can agree with me that we have learned so much in today's lesson. Be sure to use those punctuation marks correctly so that there is clarity in your writing. Did you know that the colon is used just before introducing a list of items? Well, if you didn't, I encourage you to take some time to do research on the use of other punctuation marks, such as the colon, semicolon, and hyphen, as this information can be very beneficial to you. Remember, there is no wealth like knowledge. Since we've learned so much about punctuation marks today, we will make use of a comma and pause here until our next class. Do take care until we meet again.